Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share the chairman's goals and the frustration of not knowing where the administration is on this. You just made the statement that you've imposed 150 sanctions. To what end? I mean, every day things seem to get better for Iran, even though you keep putting these sanctions on. I heard what you just said about sanctioning the IRGC for oil sales, but my goodness, sanctioning the IRGC to what end? I mean, they've been sanctioned I don't know how many times. What I want to hear, just as the chairman referred to, is I want to hear about sanctions that'll stop the oil sales to China. That is a huge problem here, and it's ongoing, and it's resulting, as the chairman described, in a very significant cash flow into Iran, which they smilingly take, particularly with the price of oil today. So, yeah, sanctions on the IRGC. I'm underwhelmed, and I think everybody else is. I suspect the IRGC is. They probably shrug and laugh and continue to cash the checks that come from China. What can you tell us about what the administration is going to do about sanctions? They're toothless.
So, Ranking Member, let me say that I don't disagree. We all have to do a better job. And this is a bipartisan issue. It's an issue that goes back decades about dealing with Iran's activities. But you also make a very important point that sanctions are not the silver bullet. It was during the period of maximum pressure. President Trump imposed somewhat in the order of 1,600 new sanctions designations. And it was during that period of maximum pressure, as I said, that we saw maximum destabilizing activities, unprecedented brazen attacks against oil tankers, against oil fields in Saudi Arabia, against our troops. All of that during the time when supposedly we were supposed to crush Iran's economy so that it would improve its behavior. So we need to do a better job. We need to have and we're working, and I'd be happy, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, to say more in a classified setting about our plans with our allies in the region and in Europe. But the reality is, this is a challenge that we have faced for decades. We need to do better, and the best path forward in terms of the nuclear program is to get back into the deal, but that doesn't leave us off the hook for all the other issues, and we're working on them. We have not stopped working on them, and I think the Iranian leadership would beg to differ with the description of their economy doing well. The rial has lost 85% of its value since 2018, 25% of that under President Biden's watch, inflation at 40%, unemployment rising, protests in the streets. I don't think this is a strong regime that is basking in being able to circumvent sanctions. It is a regime under duress, and that's because of its own mismanagement and our sanctions.
Well, Ms. Malley, I think it's a fair point to say that the economy is not good in Iran, but it's adequate. They seem to be getting by. Certainly, they've got the weaknesses that you've described, but they keep putting one foot in front of the other. Turning to your point about, former President Trump got out of the JCPOA, and my gosh, all these terrible things happened. Well, what are you guys doing about it? If that wasn't the answer, what are you doing about it? You came in and said, don't worry, we're going to have an agreement that is longer and stronger. That train has left the station a long time ago. It isn't longer, and it isn't stronger, and it doesn't even exist. In fact, what we're hearing about is it will be shorter and weaker if indeed you do wind up getting into an agreement, which I, for one, certainly hope that you don't. What's your plan? As the chairman said, I don't know what the policy is. You keep sitting at the table and you keep negotiating. How long is this going to go on?
So, Mr. Ranking Member, and it was a question the chairman asked as well about how long we will go. Our goal is we're prepared to get back into the JCPOA for as long as our assessment is that its non-proliferation benefits are worth the sanctions relief that we would provide. But again, that doesn't mean that we sit by and only negotiate. We've not lifted a single sanction that President Trump imposed. We've added to those sanctions. We've taken steps with our partners to go after their UAV program, their ballistic missile program, to strengthen both Israel and our Gulf allies, partners, in their ability to counter the threat that Iran presents. So we're doing all of that whether the JCPOA talks continue or not. At this point, it is our assessment, our technical expert assessment, that the non-proliferation benefits of the deal are worth the sanctions relief that we would provide.
Well, let me go back to the question that Chairman, the line of questioning the Chairman did, and that is, on the first of the year, the Secretary of State told us 3 months and that's it. We're done. We're through. It's no good anymore. When does this end, and why should we believe you in any way, shape, or form when you don't keep the commitments that were made before, the longer and stronger deal that was promised, and the cutting it off if you don't get a deal? Why should we believe anything at this point?
So on the issue of longer and stronger, I do want to clarify that. I think what President Biden said, what Secretary Blinken said, what all members of the administration said was, let's get back into the deal and use that as a platform to get a longer and stronger deal. Partly, in large part, because it's much safer to negotiate a longer, stronger deal when we know that the nuclear program is in check, rather than have to negotiate with the looming threat of a threshold state before us. That is not a negotiation that's going to be easy to lead. It's going to be a long-term diplomatic effort. And to do it knowing that any day Iran could break out without us having either the ability to know it or to act against it is putting us in a much weaker position. So we hope to get back into the JCPOA. If we don't, you will see continued sanctions enforcement, tightened sanctions enforcement. You will see intensified action with our allies and partners. But all of that is continuing, again, regardless of whether we get back into the JCPOA. So being at the table doesn't tie our hands any more than it's tying Iran's hands. If they feel free to go after us, we will feel free to respond and to take action against them.
So when are you going to end? When are you going to walk? When is this going to happen?
As I said, and I apologize, it's true that we've said things in the past. What has always been our guiding star is what are the non-proliferation benefits that our experts tell us and the intelligence community tells us. But again, being at the table doesn't mean we're waiting. We're not waiting, we're acting, and we're acting to promote our interests, to make sure that Iran cannot export its instability and its missiles and its UAVs across the region.
Right.